Call to order the meeting of the Zionsville Board of Parks and Recreation for Wednesday, May 11th. We have quite a few people in the audience tonight. We're glad you're here. Sorry we're a little bit late. We were in an executive session discussing a few issues, so we're happy to get started now, and thank you for your patience. We appreciate that. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is call the roll. Vice President Jill Pack.
Here.
Secretary John Wollenberg.
Here.
Tim Cassidy.
Here.
John Salowitz.
Here.
Sarah Moore.
Here.
Chris Barksdale.
Here.
And I, John Stair, am here as well. The next question has to do with the minutes from April 13th. And you'll notice when you got your packets that they were separated in a separate attachment. That was a suggestion by Sarah Moore. And that certainly makes it a lot easier to look through those minutes. So we appreciate that. It was a good suggestion, and Bonnie picked right up on that. So that being said, does anybody have any comments or changes to the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
John Salowitz makes a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Tim Cassidy seconds. And we'll just do that by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show that that passes unanimously. All right, the next thing on the agenda is public presentations and comments. And we have quite a few people in the audience tonight. I suspect we're going to get some comments. So now would be the time. Does anyone have any comments that they would like to make to the board? Anyone at all? Pardon? Come up to the podium, please. Please give us your name and address. And
my name is Mary Lee Anthony. I'm a resident of Zionsville, Indiana, and I play golf with these women that came here tonight, along with, I think there are 77 members of our golf league that play, and we are wondering the status of the golf cart path improvement, because we've been bumped from our home course out to different places, and we want to come home, play there.
we understand your concern, and we're concerned as well. When our superintendent gives his report tonight, that will be part of it. And
Okay,
we'll
good,
discuss
then
where we are on that.
Okay, but that's why you see all these faces here.
Yeah, so I understand. And you know, we certainly commiserate with you on that. We'd like to see the golf course open as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All right, the next item on the agenda is the Parks Foundation update. This is something that we're going to do on a semi-monthly basis, and our liaison of the Parks Foundation is Jill Pack, and she's going to speak with us now. Jill?
Great. I have a brief summary of what's going on with the Parks Foundation. For those of you in the audience, the Zionsville Parks Foundation was formed last year. It is a nonprofit, 501c3, is that right? To support Zionsville parks in various ways. And they have done several things. So far this year, they have sponsored Greenfest, been one of the sponsors of Greenfest, one of many. They have provided some scholarship money for the summer camp program. And we had a few families, I think 2 families that took part in that. They had allocated a total of $1,000 for that. So what wasn't used will be rolled over to scholarships for 2023. They will be a sponsor with the Butterfly Trail. I believe they're also a sponsor for Winterfest again. Is that correct? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And they also have agreed to provide funding for the pilot environmental education series that the department's putting together for Zionsville 3rd graders. And it's going to be a pilot program at one school for the 22-23 school year. They currently have 8 members and are looking to grow. At their last meeting was their annual meeting. They elected officers. The president is Nancy Carpenter. The treasurer is Kelly Mason Cup, and the secretary is John Bumgarner. In addition, they've already lined up a sponsor for milkweed plants for next year's Greenfest in 2023. They plan on having a table and taking the nonprofit table at the farmers market on August 20th. And so from a financial standpoint, For 2022, their goal is to raise donations of $26,150. They have a long way to go, but most of their money comes in end of year with Giving Tuesday and time for taxes, that type of thing. In 2021, they did raise $27,437. So their budgeted grants out into the public this year are $14,400. And that's kind of the synopsis. Any
Okay.
questions?
Well, the Parks Foundation is relatively new, and so kind of a blank slate, and looking for a path forward to be able to be helpful to the Parks Department and the people of Zionsville. Do you see an openness for other ideas and other options that might come their way, might be presented to them?
Absolutely. I know that one thing they're talking about is to get their name out into the public more, is doing a fall fundraiser out at Carpenter Nature Preserve, where people can come out, make a donation, do a little tour. And that's kind of in the early stages of planning.
Anyone else have any comments? I will mention that the Carpenter Nature Preserve Master Plan is something we're going to present a bit later in this meeting tonight. For those of you who want to stay and see that, I think hopefully you'll be impressed by what is planned for out there and what that can add to the parks in Zionsville. And the Parks Foundation, pretty much came out of a desire to develop the Carpenter Nature Preserve at the old Wolf Run Golf Course. So Jill, thank you very much. Sure appreciate that. All right, the next thing on the agenda is staff reports. And for that, we turn to our Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, Jared Logston. Jared?
Thank you, John. We'll start off by talking about the golf course. So kind of a little synopsis about the cart path improvement project. So it was actually very rewarding today. I was out at the course with our golf course manager, and a citizen came up and was asking about the project and mentioned that they did go to another course and did not enjoy the play, and compared ours to the PGA as a comparison to other opportunities in the community. So we do value the investments Mike Wall and his staff have made in the course over the years to beautify it and create the best experience for you all. And during that same light, we were keeping an eye on the cart paths and looking at that infrastructure as well. With crumbling cart paths and hazards on some of the slopes, this was something that was long overdue. So there is no great time to close a golf course when you're paving. Ideally, it would be over the winter, but asphalt has to be above 40 degrees at night to pave appropriately. So we did begin this in the fall. We had some synergy with Duke Energy, who also replaced those poles along the utility easement. So with that coordination in the fall, we closed the course about a month early, and we were able to save the taxpayer over $20,000 by combining our two projects together, and also mitigating future closure for their project. So there was a reason we attempted this in the fall. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't the driest fall we've ever had. So ultimately, they did begin to spin their tires and have to quit for the season. So we entered into an agreement that they would resume once the asphalt plants opened up in the spring, and we would finish and complete the project. So we have been monitoring this project since February in constant communication with the contractor. And I do want to share a photo here. So we have been, weather has become more and more ideal, so everyone is getting antsy as the days become more beautiful. But just Monday, while the greens did appear relatively dry, we are very much still in a floodplain for the majority of our golf course. That's part of our treasure of being so close to Eagle Creek. The course actually has a relief valve for Eagle Creek, so when it rises too high, it empties out into our course. You all know that because you've played there in the spring other years. So we are the saturation low point, so it takes the longest to dry out. So I'm very happy to say that our contractor has been back outside this week, and just today they are clearing the stone and the previous cart paths, hauling that off and preparing to lay the new stone in its place. So Thursday and Friday will be all hands on deck for our contractor to get that stone in place. We are anticipating some rain over the weekend, but having that stone in place will allow for paving to happen much more quickly next week. So we are looking at wrapping up this project The contractor feels we have just under 2 weeks left of work to do, and we should be able to get the course back open. Mike and his staff have been keeping the greens up to date, and we'll actually be fertilizing tomorrow, and they're looking really good. So once we can button up this light construction that's left, we will be able to welcome the public back.
Jared, I was heartened that so much was going on there today. I went there about 4 o'clock, ran into Trish, our designer there. So that was all great. There's lots going on, but it's a critical time of the year. Yeah, there's lots of golfers and revenue at stake. It's such a, it's a disappointment that they couldn't finish it in the fall. But I would suggest that we ask Amy just to make sure that we know under that contract what all of our remedies are if in the next month or so. And this also would help us communicate better what's going on. Weather is a wild card that, but I would like Amy's opinion on, how weather impacts the contract and what our remedies might be if they are late.
Absolutely. We can look into that further.
Yeah.
Yes. The contractors have not been paid to date. Because in these public projects, they submit pay apps throughout the project, and we award them based on the work that is done. So whether it's a clerical, administrative thing, they just haven't sent us a pay app yet. Right. Not to date. We haven't received one.
That's not why they quit working, because they haven't been paid. That's what I heard.
That is incorrect. They quit working because conditions became obstructive to continuing. So
From December until now.
yes, so
Every day.
yes, absolutely. So again, being in a floodplain, those heavy trucks driving over there are doing more damage to the course that they, the contractor in turn has to repair. So I think it's also important to note NDOT doesn't consider, the start of December through April as any workable days on their calendars. So the fact that we did get some progress in December and then we're able to check in and begin this project this spring in a window that is not considered workable by some organizations. So we have been diligently in contact with the contractor throughout this entire process. And when it became feasible and appropriate to re-engage, they have.
Have the contractors asked for any increase in pay
Because of
economy and
this contractor has not asked for any increases. I think the stone's been piled up for quite a while in the parking lot, so they might have already had that in place.
And I would say, again, we do understand your frustration. And, I hope you know that we're frustrated too. But I would say that, years ago, whenever it was that those cart paths were first installed, some of them were installed without any foundation whatsoever. And of course, that area floods on a regular basis. And that's not going to lend itself to cart paths staying in place when the floods come up. At this point, it'll be done better. It'll be done right. The cart paths will stay in place. It's going to be better in the long run. And I realize that there's short-term pain here. I know how much you want to get out there and play. I really do. And I can only say that hopefully you'll all appreciate it more when it's done, and that we're not going to have to go through this again on a regular basis.
After so everything happens as planned, and next week we get pavement, what's the timeline before we get beyond that course?
As I mentioned, Mike and his team have been doing an excellent job keeping the greens up. So truly, once we do that final punch, as long as there's no hazards, we'll be open for play. Now, if there are hazards, we could always snow fence them, secure them from the public. So we'll address those as those happen. But, the irrigation system was damaged throughout this project, and we're already repairing that to make sure that stays in place and is ready to go when we get back in order. So we are not wasting any time. I don't know if you drove by today, but the building is being primed by our volunteer painter.
Clubhouse looked great.
Looking
Go,
excellent.
Mike. Yeah.
So we are taking this opportunity to make all the improvements we can. So when we welcome you back, it's going to be the most enjoyable experience. So, that's why we're here and that's why we do this. We enjoy serving the community and offering this amenity.
Will there be a delay about parking lot?
That is the, so, as their paver leaves the cart paths, the last thing they will do is repair and stripe the parking lot. Yes, yep. So part of the contract is to replace in the condition they found it. So anything they damage, they will replace. And we've already had that conversation, so they're aware.
Is there money in the budget to pay the contract?
Yes, this is a budgeted item. We had an allocation last year, an additional appropriation, both from the Parks Department funds and also an investment from the golf course. And all of those funds were, what's the term, brought forward,
Appropriated.
reappropriated for this year. So they're ready to disperse once the project is complete.
Yeah, this was a publicly advertised and bid project, so done in accordance with Indiana open door laws. So, it's just late. It's just late.
Are there any other plans for the drainage? A separate drainage project at some time?
Absolutely. So for the past year, we've been working with the Department of Public Works internally on an engineering solution for that drainage on the site. So as you know, it's a floodplain. We will never cure it, but we can certainly keep the water moving as it accumulates. So one of the solutions is to create a new ditch over to the creek. And that would just alleviate a lot of that water that ends up on 4. So we're looking at that, and that would be an in-house project that would not disrupt gameplay at all. So that would not be a closure to this scale, certainly, maybe one day at the most. And we're not looking at that for the 2022 season. Any other questions?
Not promising this will be done and ready in 2 weeks because we don't really know I haven't looked at forecast to see, you said rain this weekend, but
Absolutely.
if there's more rain like we have been getting, that could potentially move it back? Or-
Yes. So everything is weather dependent. All construction is. So if there's not a workable day, there's not a workable day in there. And with this project, every day it rains, we do lose some ground on when they can reactivate. But having the stone in place, which is their goal this week, while the weather is still good, we'll fortify that a little bit, and they'll be able to get the pavers out and in tow, much more resilient.
Anybody else?
And one thing you had mentioned before is that they are on our high priority, their list. We're first done with the contractor.
Absolutely. They are receiving daily phone calls from myself and REA, and they know this is important to the community, and they're looking to button it up just as much as us.
You are not the only project that has been delayed by rain this year. It has really had a hamper on construction.
All of our projects have saw that, unfortunately, which we'll talk about next. The contractor is Citywide Paving.
Moving on. Maintenance?
I have 2 more quick things right here.
Okay.
Wanted to discuss quickly the Starkey Avenue Bridge, which is a component of the Southern Rail Trail expansion, and just mention that the bridge will receive topsoil and be seeded tomorrow, and the road will be open by end of day. The rail trail will remain closed until the ribbon cutting as a part of Overly Warm on May 20th. And one more quick announcement. This Friday at Overly Warm Park, we will be having a volunteer group and asking any mountain bikers that wish to come out to help us get the trails ready to welcome the public in a week. So if you're available from 4 to 6, there is an online registration application for this volunteer event, if you're so interested. That is all from the superintendent report.
All right, Jared, next up. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
John, do we have Greg online? Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Just a few things I want to highlight for April's report. First, I want to talk about the 4 weed wrangles we held at various parks this last April, Parks team. It was really successful. We had over 316 people that took part. Large part of that was the Z West 6th graders, and we managed to collect about 80 trash bags of invasive garlic mustard, lesser saladine, and bush honeysuckle sprouts. Some of the other things our team has been doing, we've installed 4 memorial benches at 4 of our different various parks. We got all our water fountains and irrigation lines and our water spigots up and running for the season. And that's about all I have for April, if anybody has any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Greg? I believe we don't. Anything else, Greg?
That is all. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. All
Good
right,
evening.
So recreation report on what's going on. April is kicking off and it's just going to get busier and busier as we progress into summer. Just real quick, about 1,400 walk-ins. This was the first time that the Nature Center was open for spring break in the new location in the library, and it did not disappoint. So while we always think that Zionsville kind of clears out, there were enough people around. So we averaged about 109 people a day through the door at the Nature Center. We did have a little drop-in craft. And so that averaged about 20 to 30 people a day that did the craft. I know the staff had to keep going over and make more copies because they were running out of things. But so it was pretty good. So for the 7 days that we were open during break, we saw, almost 800 people during that period of time. So just a few other things. April is the start of our school program season. So our naturalists have been busy doing school programs for Zionsville schools as well as scouts. And then May will continue that one. We actually are fully booked into May. That we're not doing a public program, we're doing a school program on every day, or multiple programs even. Just a few other ones there. I was asked to present at Indiana Parks and Recreation Association did a camp summit in April, and they did reach out and ask for me to present on nature and the benefits of nature in camps. And so that was a nice afternoon, kind of getting away from the office and talking a little about what we do in Zionsville with our camps. And so they were looking to have that as being an ongoing thing in the future. So this was the first time that they did it. Greg talked a little bit about the weed wrangles. So we were happy to see Z West back out with us. It's been a couple years because of COVID that they couldn't, but they were, as soon as they lifted the restrictions, the 6th grade teachers called us up and said, we want to come back up to Starkey. So had about 280 kids and teachers out there spending the morning. So it was pretty nice. We did have our first Zionsville Green Fest back underneath Parks and Recreation. Had taken a leave for a few years, and that was very well attended. We had about 320 people that came through. I think everyone enjoyed themselves. We had about 25 different exhibitors or presenters, so that was a nice addition. That here in Town Hall, we had presentations going out throughout that morning on lots of different topics, such as, composting, native plants, invasive species, solar. So it was a nice opportunity for people to get a little bit more information or even just talk and get some contacts for if they had some information for that one. We also had a little student art contest that was going on for that one. So it was nice to get to contact the students to let them know if their art contest, they got a prize for that one. And then thanks to all of the sponsors that we did have for the event, we were able to raffle off a rain barrel as well as a composter. So people were very happy to pick those up as well. And then just lastly, I know, Jill talked a little bit about it. Rachel Felling, one of my naturalists, did present to the Zionsville Parks Foundation on a project that she's been working on. She actually started working on it before COVID with her thoughts, And we were able to kind of wrap that up and get it moving, that we are going to be doing a pilot program this fall with Eagle Elementary third graders. So the entire 4 classes of Eagle Elementary on a 4-part environmental ed series. So the program will have 2 times that we actually go to the students in their classroom and kind of build off of what they've learned. And then a 3rd visit out to the parks. And then that 4th visit will actually be a service project that working with the teachers and the students would determine what that would be, whether it's, plantings, helping with invasives, trail work, it could be multiple different things. So it was nice. The Parks Foundation is going to fund that first year entirely. And then the teachers and the principal at Eagle are fully on board on, giving us feedback and helping us work with the curriculum and the materials that would be the pre and post, with the goal that in the future, this is going to end up going hopefully to all of the 3rd grade classes throughout Zionsville. So, and then I did start onboarding for us for MyRec. So did submit all the information to them. They're currently working on building out our website and adding in all the features that we'd like to see, with the goal that we will roll out the new MyRec registration and park website on July 1st is our project plan. And then also coming up this summer, we have our Zionsville Butterfly Trail. So we did have 25 art submissions for that trail. So it's a hard decision to only have the 8. So we had I stuck butterflies all around town hall in the hallways and asked people to drop the little slips to vote which ones they liked. And, but I just reached out to the artists and they are wrapping up artwork. Some of them sent me photos of what they're doing. And so we're hoping to get them back here soon, and they'll be up in various areas of the park starting in June. So that's it, unless you guys have any questions.
Hey, Mindy, one quick question. I saw several of the events had 0 attendees.
Yes.
When that happens, do you guys attribute it to the event or the location or the timing, or what? How do you guys handle those?
It's always kind of you never know, because we can do the exact same program, write up everything the same and try it another day and it'll fill. So some of them, it could have been weather that was an issue with it. Some of it was just the topics. Usually we'll try something at least twice, and then we'll say maybe this just isn't something that people are interested in. But yeah, I mean, it always happens that there'll be a program here or there that either has a low attendance and we have to cancel it because it's just, it's too much to try and get 2 people to do, or so just nobody will show for that one. But then at the same time, then you have another program that's the same week that fills with a wait list. So, but yeah, we always try new things, and there's no rhyme or reason. I've never been able to figure out why certain things go the way they do.
I was curious.
As a library person, I've been working on library programs for 20 years, and it just happens.
Yeah.
And you never know what's going to be a hit and what 4 years later is going to be a hit, but maybe it was a hit right now. And I think 0 show that you're trying new things, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Mindy, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing is the report from our legal counsel. Unless, Jared, you have something you want to say before we start that? No? Okay. Amy?
Sure. I've been busy reviewing some agreements that Jared has been great about sending to me for review and negotiating terms to ensure we have terms that are beneficial to the department. One of those was the REA agreement for master planning that we negotiated some changes to and has since been executed by John. So that is in place now. Jared and I have been working through some credit card processor agreements that we've had some challenges with, and they're looking at some alternatives there. I have been talking with John and Jared and assisting with developing strategy regarding some facets of the rail trail expansion and helping to ensure that the timeline continues to be followed there and we get everything that we need to in place. And I think that's all my answers.
Well, would now be the appropriate time to make a resolution concerning the rail trail and the trailhead in particular?
Sure, I think so.
All right. So based on discussions that we've had in executive session, would anybody like to make a motion concerning that?
I would move in terms of, this is our trailhead property, which we now own, and in terms of assisting our president and superintendent in securing possession and ensuring the safety of the real estate, we'd like to, I would propose that we also authorize our president to act on behalf of the board to instigate litigation if necessary, if he deems it necessary, to help us secure and prepare that real estate for this next phase.
Okay, we have a motion from Tim Cassidy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is that Sarah? Sarah Moore seconds it. Let's take a vote. Jill Pack,
Aye.
John Wallenberg,
Aye.
John Salowitz,
Aye.
Sarah Moore,
Aye.
Chris Barksdale,
Aye.
Tim Cassidy,
Aye.
and I say aye as well. Let the record show that that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, anything else, Amy?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
So moving on then to new business. Jared?
Semi-infrequently, we do receive requests to film in our parks. Historically, that has gone before you, and we make a decision and ultimately allow or not allow someone to film in our parks. But now with the new special event application, it actually includes filming on town property within its provisions. So before you tonight is just to request park board approval for a local filmmaker to occupy a section of Starkey Park's trail system for one afternoon, June 11th, from approximately 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. To film a short film. You all, I believe, received a small sample of the script of the scenes that would occur on site. As a part of the special event application, they will be required, the filmmaker will be required to hold insurance that lists the town as additionally insured on that policy. So happy to answer.
No member of the Parks Department has a part in this film, do they?
We do not.
Are you James?
I'm the Red Ninja, so.
Well, I had trouble understanding. I thought that, ninjas traditionally dressed in black so they could be kind of stealthy, and hidden. I don't know if a red ninja is, going to be as effective, but I guess I wouldn't want to, question artistic choices like that. The important thing to me is that there's not any environmental impact. We are insured, and this just seems like all in good fun to me.
Is there a provision for a rain date if June 11th is stormy or?
I can check with that. I also want to specify exactly how much of the trail and do want to see a sample of his signage that he'll post, notifying the public that there is filming in that area.
So it's gonna be, the area's gonna be closed off for the public?
Yep, for approximately the full day. Yep.
It's a section of one of the trails, not the whole park.
Right.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And we would have signage to reroute around that because Starkey is interconnected throughout. So.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this special request from
Make a motion to
local
approve
filmmaker?
the filming.
John Salowitz moves that we accept this special use permit. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jill Pack seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that unanimously passes. We look forward to seeing the film. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jared.
All right, moving on to the Carpenter Nature Preserve Master Plan presentation. So last fall, the board began the process of master planning for the potential Carpenter Nature Preserve, 215 acres located on the north side of Zionsville. That was generously purchased by the Carpenters with the intent of turning it into a public park. So we entered into agreements to begin that discussion, and Tricia McCullen of Runsdell Ernstberger and Associates is here tonight to talk about both the results of the master plan as well as the public engagement. So hand it over to Tricia.
And I've got Sam Fonderau, did I get it right? Fonderau with Delve here with us. I always say it wrong. We partnered with Delve Architects and Ecologic for the master plan. So you've heard previews, seen a little bit of the plan. I just want to give you the overall master plan, start to finish. So let's do this so we can see it. So we did go through a 4-phase process. Beginning was assessment, and I'll give you a little bit of that. We went through a charrette process for this to kind of condense the timeline with master plan. So that was a 3-day charrette where we talked to a lot of stakeholders, some focus groups, and then worked on conceptual layouts. So the 3 concepts that came out of that charrette, we'll go through those here quickly. That then developed into the preferred concept. We will show you cost estimate and then some options for funding and public outreach after we had the plan. So inventory, as I mentioned, we did a thorough inventory of the site, and that did include an ecological assessment that was done by Ecologic. I think he said he spent about a week out on site actually documenting the existing plant communities. And then they developed proposed plant communities, which really drove the master plan, layout of the master plan. We also looked at slopes. That's the map up there in the top right corner. So the red are steep, and then the lighter colors are less steep. So that shows you there's a certain amount of terrain out here on the site at Carpenter. We also looked at the drainage areas, existing pavement, which are mainly the old pathways, and then the vegetation, which is there on the lower right, which mainly follows the Eagle Creek corridor. You see Eagle Creek kind of snaking there along the eastern edge. So this was the map that Ecologic developed. And again, this is the proposed restoration plant communities. Because we know this is going to be a nature preserve, because we know that's a main mission of the plan itself, this really became a driving force for how the layout of the site came about. And the main thing with plant communities and habitat is being sure that we are having some good continuous masses of that habitat so that, you know, those species can move back and forth in those different habitats. So I'll let Sam talk a little bit. We did do an assessment of the existing clubhouse and bunkhouse that are out there, just so we could see what condition they were in, evaluate, do we want to use the existing structures, you know, what would be needed to get them into the shape that they needed to be. So I'll let Sam tell you a little bit more about that assessment.
Thank you. So there are 2 existing structures on the property. One is the old clubhouse, which is about a little over 9,000 square feet on the ground floor. And then adjacent to that is a 2-story bunkhouse that has a 2,000 square foot footprint. So it's roughly 4,000 square feet total. So objectively, we went through and did a facility assessment architecturally as well as with a team of structural engineers, going through all of the existing conditions, roof to basement for each of those. The clubhouse, both structures were built, we believe, in the early 80s of a residential grade construction, all wood framed. The clubhouse is over a concrete basement. There is kind of a cart drive that slopes down into the basement. When the golf course closed down, the building was stripped of its mechanical systems and electrical systems. So it's been sitting off and stagnant for quite some time. So the structural assessment in the clubhouse showed that in the basement, there are some major deficiencies with the foundation and some of the concrete work. And the way that the buildings were both framed was of a residential style in the 80s, which is not acceptable to current code for what a public assembly style space for a nature preserve would be. So in order to bring the buildings up to the required code minimum, we've discovered that essentially all of the wood structure in both buildings would need to be doubled up on all the floor levels. The clubhouse would need additional steel structure, columns and beams in the basement, as well as repairs to all the concrete work. When the buildings were constructed, the water mitigation and drainage is not up to current standards either. So there is some mold and moisture issues in the buildings as well. The clubhouse also does not have any ramps. It's not accessible to ADA compliance. So those are all objective observations to date. The good part about the clubhouse and the bunkhouse is the location. They're located really well on the site. They've got great views. And the clubhouse is appropriately sized for what a nature center would be able to use at 9,000 square feet. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Tricia to go through some of the fun stuff.
I'm going to show you one roll in this upper little hand. That's actually a picture taken from inside. That's light that is coming in from outside. So that wall, there's a gap there, and that's the basement wall, the foundation of the building. So just to give you a little picture of all the issues that Sam was talking about. So basically we had a day where it was meetings with, again, various stakeholders and focus groups, and some recurring themes came out of those meetings. And those were, number one, to bring people and nature together. So being sure that is the priority, while also attracting people to come to the site that might not normally think, I'm interested in nature. So finding ways to do that. It is a nature preserve with an emphasis on Eagle Creek ecosystem. So really embracing the site and Eagle Creek in that ecological system. Create dedicated and protected habitat areas. So again, we want people, but we also want little critters out here too. So giving them places to live and be protected, to have a light footprint, really to be a low impact, sustainable, resilient design approach, to have lots of prairie, forest, and woodland to really build up what's out there. Nature has started to take back over, so supplement that, really build up on that. And then also the nature center, to locate the nature center out on this site. That building though in itself should be adaptable and flexible. So part nature center, part community center, really a place for the community to gather. We also think it's important to mention what we don't want. Again, this came from those focus groups, equestrian trails. And if you look at this list, it's a lot of what I would call, just heavy impact. It just doesn't have that light touch to the land itself. So live music, sporting fields, hunting, mountain bike trails, again, the more active uses that are a little less compatible with some of the natural habitats. So all that being said, it kind of came down to this vision that inspire, attract, preserve. So everything that you see from here on, just keep that in your mind. And anything that we propose, it was that question: does this inspire, attract, and preserve for the site? So again, as part of the charrette, we had 3 different concepts that we drew up, and they're all a little bit different. And you'll see once we get to the preferred concept, there's kind of pieces that came from each of the concept, which is what happens a lot of the time. We come up with 3 different ideas, and there's usually pieces of each of them that the group likes. And this was our steering committee that really went through these. So concept A has the nature center in approximately the same place as the existing clubhouse is. So it's on a bluff overlooking Eagle Creek. It had a tree arbor or a tree walk behind it. It did have the dog park in the middle, or back on the south end of the site, but it had a lot of the elements you'll see in the others, utilizing existing path system, entrances that come off of State Road 32, but then also off of the county road. And then again, lots of walking trails and outdoor classrooms. Concept B again had the nature center in about the same place as the existing clubhouse. When we were looking at these concepts, we were still determining, are we going to utilize the building that we have, or are we going to have a new building? So both A and B, you could utilize the building you have, or you could have a new building in these concepts. This concept does include entrance off of the county road, a new turnaround area in front of the nature center, but it also included what we were calling White Oak Commons, which would be a restaurant, event center with the idea, it could be farm to table type of restaurant with the idea that you could draw people out here for this use. And again, they could start to see what else is available back in the nature center. And then concept C, which was, took a look at moving the nature center up along one of the ponds. It's actually the pond that the picture from the first slide is overlooking that pond. And having a formal alley of trees, still utilizing the existing road that comes in, existing barns to use them as a maintenance center, and starting to look at an amphitheater and again, all those trails that are winding throughout. This concept and even concept B, we're very heavy on, you see the grassland that has this, again, that mass, that continuous mass that comes around sort of the western side of the property. And then the woodland, really trying to mask those ecosystems. Preferred concept, again, there were pieces that came from each of those concepts. So this is the master plan. This is the layout for the master plan, the preferred concept. It does include the nature center in approximately the same place as the clubhouse there on the bluff. It does utilize the existing road and turnaround and the existing parking area. All that will be redone, but you're using the existing layout of those. It does include a primary entrance off of State Road 32. Forgot to mention this little square up here on the northwest part of the site is owned by the school corporation. So to have that entrance off of 32, we need to negotiate a land purchase or an easement of some type to make that entrance possible. So we do have the secondary entrance. If that becomes not possible, that we can still have access to the site. It includes utilizing the maintenance barns or the existing barns out there as a maintenance facility, and then utilizing a lot of the paths that are out there as trails. And I'll show you a little more detail of the trails here in a minute. So phase 2, if you look between those slides, not a big difference. Actually, the difference is if you look over here close to the county road, it shows White Oak Commons that falls in there. So that is a future phase. It's a more long-term phase that we're thinking about for the site itself. Before I move on, the big pink dots are outdoor classrooms. We also had boardwalk going over the wetland, a tree canopy behind the nature center, along with tree houses. And I'll show you some highlighted so you can see where these are close up and then some examples of what these might look like. These are the habitats, which again are very important for the design. It does come from that plan that Ecologic had produced for us. We did follow that very closely, that the prairie grassland and the shrubland, and it's all done for the birds and again, all the animals to have the habitat that they need. So the trails. This is highlighted. So the nature center's down here, just to get you oriented, but this is the highlighted, the paved accessible trail. So it stays pretty close to on the top of the hill to the nature center, but it makes it so you can have a paved accessible trail that goes all the way out to another shelter that's up by this turnaround and the camp area. And then, it catches a couple of those outdoor classrooms. So again, you could have that accessible path that goes all out through the park. This is actually showing the 5K cross country trail. We talked about meets, and then I think John Wallenberg had expressed some concerns, and I think we heard some of those same concerns in terms of meets and the cross-country meets and the number of people that might be out on the site and the damage that they might do. And actually talking to the cross-country coaches, and they said it's too hard to have meets. The course that we've laid out is too hard. They love it for practice. They love it for torturing their kids, but they said it's too hard to have meets. So the idea is we could still have this 5K course. I mean, I would love to run this 5K course. And then the cross-country teams could use it for practice too. White Oak Commons. So again, this is a future phase further out, but this shows you an idea of what White Oak Commons might look like. It's called White Oak Commons because when you pull in off of the county road here, there is a huge great white oak tree. It's beautiful. And so it's, you know, really honoring that oak tree, naming the development after that, but then also having an access that runs through the development. So the white blocks are buildings, and then it's more of an arbor that would go around a green in the center, where again, you could have a restaurant, you could have market, you could have shop outfitters. We've talked about, you know, is there cross-country skiing? Could you rent fishing poles? Those types of things that could actually be out here. This would require a reconfiguration of the maintenance barns as a part of that development. So when I say event center, I'm sure there's lots of different, you know, from convention center type event center to, you know, the different aesthetics that you could think of with that. This is more of what we're thinking. You know, it looks like a barn, but there could be weddings out there. You know, there could be reunions, whatever event you could think of that you could have out at White Oak Commons. So this is a close-up of the Nature Center. Again, we're utilizing that existing road and turnaround that comes in, utilizing the existing footprint of the parking. Along the south, sort of the back side of the Nature Center is that canopy walk. So it's a boardwalk up in the top of the trees with some tree houses that pop up in between there. Really makes an interesting play element over top. And it's a valley that's kind of going down the hillside. So the experience would be really neat. An amphitheater down at the bottom of the hill, again, boardwalk going out over the wetland, nature play area up on the top of the hill by the Nature Center, and then this woodland gallery here that comes along the north side. And that, I think of it like an arboretum in miniature. So it's still natives and natural, but it would be, you know, one tree instead of a massive tree, you know, or a few trees instead of a massing of trees, so that it could be used as an educational component. So when I say tree houses, this is, you know, what we're thinking of. Again, it's that experience that people could climb up in, along with that canopy that's up in the top of the trees, and just boardwalks to get people out over the wetlands. I didn't mention, but along with the Nature Center, and we do have various places throughout the site for art, to have art and nature. And these are just a few examples of, you know, different types of the ways that those are done, but it does bring another element to the site that you're not going to find anywhere else in Zionsville. And honestly, they're not included in a lot of the nature preserves. Bernheim, you know, a few of them do have those, but that would give us something unique out here. I'm going to turn it back over to Sam so he can talk about the different options that we looked at with the Nature Center.
So we developed 3 parallel potential programs of what the program components of what we envision a new nature center might house. So three separate tracks. One looking at what would potentially be about a 9,000 square foot program within the existing footprint of the clubhouse. And then 2 other new construction options that would be, one was about 12,000 square feet and one about 5,000 square feet. So in developing those, we looked at precedent nature centers from across the country to kind of identify what different size and functions and programs are available at different communities around the country. And 12,000 and 5,000 square feet are kind of rough examples of the jump in scale for applicable nature centers. So I won't get into all of the data and the sizes of everything, you know, other than saying when doing this, the major program elements that we're considering are exhibit space, community meeting space, classrooms, potential catering kitchen for activities, and then office space as well. So the capacity for all of those things essentially just grows or doubles obviously with the larger options. So an example of looking at the 5,000 square foot option would have a multi-purpose space that would fit 49 people versus a 12,000 square foot center would have one that would fit more like 150 people. So just the scale of gathering, the ability to house larger school groups, things like that. After that, we went through each of those 3 program sizes and just started to mass those out, play with the sorting building blocks to understand the relationships between the spaces and to be able to better visually show just the scale differences between all of those options. So this is the 12,000 square foot option that we're showing here. With all 3 options, again, we always layer in the lens of sustainability, especially since that's one of the aspirations of this development of the project of a nature preserve. So whether that be a small, medium, large new construction or rehabilitation and renovation of the existing clubhouse building, that's always a lens that we put on, looking for opportunities to make wise long-term decisions for the earth, the climate, and for cost and spending. So with that, we did kind of a high-level life cycle analysis, looking at those 3 program options to start to understand the cost of what an initial spend might be versus what the spend over a 30-year time period might be. And big picture landed at looking at a new construction option at a 5,000 square foot cost would be the lower of the 3 cost options. Actually renovating the existing at the initial spend is that medium range, and then obviously the 12,000 square foot new construction is the most expensive. But once you start to layer in the cumulative energy use over 30 years, assuming that we have the ability with a new construction to, a lot has changed in the past 30 years as far as building technology and building science. So with the aspirations of getting to a net zero energy building would be in line with the mission and the vision of the park. Versus retrofitting the existing building with more residential style systems. Again, over the course of 30 years, there's a significant difference in energy usage, and also factoring in that we really think that the way that the current buildings were built is such a quality that they're more like 50-year lifespan buildings, and even with putting all these systems in them, they're still kind of on the later end of their life cycle. So with an initial spend to get it up and running, you also have to consider maybe a 15 to 20 year remainder on its life cycle before you would have to replace it anyway. So there's lots of data that we generated and analyzed to just to lay out the different options for the short and long-term cost impacts for those programs. And with that, also showing some of the precedents that we studied from around the country, aspirational projects that we always look to just for guidance, just to understand what else other communities are doing for the size and type of construction for their nature centers. So I won't spend too much time on either of these. There's 5 or 6 that I'll scroll through, but just to kind of take note of the character and quality of what we would aspire to move towards with the new construction, and also the square footage, so that we can start to compare program to program. So this is 15,000 square feet and outside of Pittsburgh. This is about a 12,000 square foot project that I played a small role in. And I think this is an important one to show because it shows the opportunity to phase as well. If there would be an opportunity to break a larger program into 2 phases, to make it easier to construct, easier to fund. That's an option too, when we start to looking at that program and how we organize it to make it easy to phase and add on to. 12,000 square feet in Columbus. There's a few in here that would be good field trips, just to go look at the programs that are taking place in these and then how they're organized and laid out. So Columbus, and then one in Kentucky, that's a beautiful building. This is on the smaller side, but really just integrating with nature and playing seamlessly with the preserve is the key.
Where's Claremont, Kentucky?
I think it is to the west of Lexington.
Oh,
So we had a public website, and this is the input, some of those questions that we asked. I just thought it was interesting to see the dashboard. So there were 1,300 unique users and about close to 8,000 visits. So that means those users went back more than once, or, it could have been a couple people in household. But still, that shows you, 8,000 visits for a master plan those are pretty good numbers. That's pretty good response. Now the survey, we had about 170 responses on those. So, which again is a pretty good number for a master plan. We're asking people to do a little more work. They just want to go and look. Really we're pleased with that number. This isn't all the questions that we asked. We'll definitely include in the appendix the full results, but I did want to just pull out a few of them. And this question was, which park features are you most excited to see? And it was one of those select all that apply, so they weren't limited by their number of answers. But you'll see most popular trails, pathways, and boardwalks. The next was the nature center. And then in the red was the ecological habitats. But then also wildlife viewing blinds was very close in there. So it's just interesting to see where those responses come in. And we did have a couple that the white wedge there is dog park. These two are, how would you like to pay for acquiring the property is the top, and then paying for the development is the bottom. And they're fairly similar, but they're a little bit different in the responses. And like you'll find with most times that we ask this question, donations or fundraising was the most popular for both of those questions. Combination of private and public funds was the next. But when you look at the pie chart, while the purple and the yellow are a little bit bigger, there's still a pretty good response for existing budget, bonds, new taxes and fees. So that just shows you that there is some, capacity for a combination of funding mechanisms to be able to pay for this. The questions that we had just open end, what do you like? What would you like to see? There were a whole lot of very, we're excited to see it. There's always one that was not excited, but the majority were definitely very excited. And then this one just shows you where people live. So the blue and the green are Zionsville. And then we got a few from Boone County, one from Whitestown, smack up against Zionsville, to be sure. And then, Marion County, we had one in there too. So the question you all wanted to ask, master plan cost opinion. Keep in mind, these are master plan numbers. So they're general, and that's why we're giving you ranges too. Anytime you get into designing, think of Overly Warman, there's things that fall off. There's things that you can get into more detail. So that's why you see a range. Even the nature center itself, this is based on a 12,000 square foot building, which is the preferred option that we ended with. It could be a much smaller building. It could be done in phases. So all those things affect the numbers. But in general, we broke it into 4 phases. So phase 1 would be land acquisition and the construction documents for the first phase. And we're estimating that around $4.5 million. Phase 2 would be the infrastructure without an S on it. which would include roads, parking, utilities, almost all of the site elements, with the exception of phase 3, which would be the nature center, the amphitheater just down the hill, and the boardwalk. And phase 3 is, anywhere from 7 to 10 million. And then phase 4, White Oak Commons, could be 5 to 10. And again, that could be 1 building, that could be 5 buildings. So it really does, affect where that final comes in. But those budget numbers do at least give you a range to know what you're looking for, where you're headed. So any questions? And we can flip back to the plan if you've got specific questions. I know you've seen pieces of this in the past, so.
The cost estimate on the nature center was from 5,000 square feet to 11. I mean, or is that for one of the?
So that's 12,000 square feet.
That was the 12. So
Yes.
that's 12.
Yeah. The other thing, phase 2 could be phase 2A, B, and C. You can always, there's just so much you can do. But again, it gives you a starting point to look at, where your money is, how much, you're wanting to invest, and then what you're getting for it.
I'm not sure about the municipal bonds being listed as different than taxes. Because they basically are, and that's how you pay them. Was that like, I don't know. I just don't know what the feeling of people and how they want to pay for it. If they were more in favor of bonds but not taxes, they are going to get paid with the taxes. That's a weird question to me, and I don't know how that impacts your plans.
We usually, that's a very good point. We pull them out just because people understand them differently between bonds and taxes, and because they're both voted on. But because, bonds are voted on, we always pull them out separate. But you're right, that's a pretty fine distinction because it ends up being included in the taxes.
Okay.
So this is more of a comment than a question. Because this is going to be more expensive than perhaps we thought when we started. That's why we're looking at phasing 4 phases rather than just trying to take it all on at once. Is that
Yes.
our thinking? Yeah.
Well, I don't know that we had a budget in mind. But yes, those are big numbers, and Jared can talk about, what thinking in terms of what the town has done, what you're going to see out here, how big the project is.
But before you step away, we do have a question from Rick back there.
You said no likelihood. What's the answer for?
It could be it could be for programs. It could be, for outdoor classrooms. There really is a lot that you could do with it, but not a big concert. It's pretty small.
I was just asking a question because someone sees an amphitheater, they're going to associate it with music. And you were stating no music. And I'm just saying that this is the first time I've seen this. Now it came out just like that. So you might explain that a little bit.
That's a good point, and show you the scale of the amphitheater might help too, because it is a fairly small amphitheater. I think that could help with that understanding too.
And the idea of it too is to be natural. It's not going to be a highly developed thing with light packages and speakers and all that kind of stuff. It's, more like the kind you would see in a state park for nature programs.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, is anytime you go to a campground that might have an amphitheater and they do programs there, and it's really just so you can see it better. And yeah.
Okay, Jared?
Absolutely. So looking at this phasing, it's the first step has to be acquisition. We have to secure the land as a town property. And from there, really our funding opportunities, not only with our partner of the Zionsville Parks Foundation, but also just the community at large, we can really begin to find that balance between public and private sponsorship of this land and making this dream happen. So Trish and I were speaking about the phasing this afternoon, and after acquisition and the construction documents, let's lay the infrastructure and get people out there. Very similar to Starkey Park. You go out there to enjoy nature. This would have a couple more bells and whistles beyond that, but it'd also be a new facility for our programming staff to program, for the public to enjoy, to build new amenities in our town, and also just begin to develop that love for the preserve as we look to expanding into a dedicated nature sanctuary and nature center on the site. So this is a legacy project, and it's just whether Zionsville wants to be known as the town that preserved this parcel and developed this dream of a nature center on it. And we have a way to get there. It'll just take time.
It certainly is a long time horizon. And I think, the point is that we need to acquire it first and capture it first, and then we can go from there. And I would also mention that it's going to require some participation from other public entities, like the school district, for example. They own that property on the northern end. I don't know if you want to go back and show that, the northern entrance, the proposed northern entrance. We have started with some very early discussions with the school district about acquiring an easement there, so we can build that road that would come off of Route 32. That's just in the beginning stages. So that's something that we're going to try to work through with the school district, but they hold that land and they hold the cards there. So hopefully, we can encourage them to participate as well.
And this project really is the capstone of the legacy of Zionsville Parks over the past 50 years. We have been preserving green space along Eagle Creek throughout our park system history. For years, over a decade, we've been working with the DNR to fortify the shores of Eagle Creek and have cleaner drinking water, less erosion, and healthier waterways. And this would encapsulate a large portion of the beginning of Eagle Creek as it enters our community, and provide a northern bridge to our southern bridge that we've already been preserving. So beyond that, 20 years of nature education with the Zionsville Nature Center. Once housed in a school, now inside the library. This would be the graduation to a final location to direct all of our natural education. So, and then ultimately giving the community what they vote on every single master plan, and that is more trails, more open spaces. So truly the capstone of everything our community has been asking for in one project.
Hey, Tricia, what's the anticipated timeline for that infrastructure phase? Like how long would something like that take, that scope?
So actually to build it
out?
after you started it, it could be a year and a half.
Okay.
You could get it done in a year if you had perfect weather, but we know how that goes.
Yeah.
So year and a half.
Well, the roads wouldn't be in floodplain, so we wouldn't have that issue to
true.
contend with.
That's true.
Although I will say the roads out there, like on this entrance and the parking lot, that's really kind of deteriorated from misuse or disuse over the years. So that would require a fair amount of attention to make that viable again.
So obviously there's a lot of cart paths that are there, and I know the paved area is rather small. So is it the removal of those and then turning them into dirt trails?
Yes. Yeah. So
Or-
you'll have the paved, you'll have a little bit of the boardwalk, but yeah, a lot of those will be removing the asphalts there, stabilizing a few of them that, have some erosion on them. And then, yeah, they'd be the rustic, the dirt path.
Yeah. I mean, nature has already reclaimed a lot of
It
that
is.
area out there, and I may be out of my depth here, maybe you can speak to it, but already a number of species have come back, and there have been species of birds and what, coyotes or foxes that are,
Both, yeah.
yeah, the population is already increasing there. It's really pretty extraordinary for what, 4 or 5 years since it's been a golf course. So anybody else have any questions or comments?
Can you go back to the phase page again?
The money or the plan?
The money.
Okay.
How many acres is it? 200?
200.
Wow.
215. Okay.
Overly
So
Warman is
612.
about 40.
Overly Warman's 47. Yeah. So in comparison, quarter. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
Well, I am just wondering, do we have a plan for the funding? Or are we figuring that out?
Well, I think the first step is to capture the land. and to decide how to do that. And then after that, we do have a question as to whether we're going to bond, whether we're going to fundraise, what we're going to do. But I think initially we need to capture the land. You know, there's not a time limit here. It's not like we have to do this all in 5 years or 10 years. I mean, when Jared says a legacy project, I think that means he's hoping to do it by the time he retires, you know, which is going to be a long time from now. I don't know if Tim and I are going to ever see it in its final stages, but the important thing is that you know, future generations of people in Zionsville do.
Yeah. Are you thinking that the foundation would be able to take on the acquisition part? do you think?
Well, I think the foundation that's part of their mission, right? Is to raise funds for that.
But, you know, like I said earlier, their goal this year is
27 now.
27,000.
I want to make a correction to that real quick. The foundation will absolutely be a partner throughout this process, but the actual acquisition. So Nancy Carpenter is both the landowner and the chair of the Parks, Zionsville Parks Foundation. So there is a conflict there. We can't fundraise for the preserve at this time. So that is all the more reason acquisition is important right now, getting that over as a town property, and then working with the foundation to fundraise for the nature center, fundraise for the tree canopies. You know, all of those items could be potential capital campaigns in the future.
So I'm assuming that the 4.5 million is not just laying around, but rather we are going to figure out whether we bond or do something else to get it. That's the plan.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, for this first phase, I think bonding is the best tool we can utilize for acquisition. And those dollars can actually be reinvested through the Land Water Conservation Fund grant. So we would be eligible next cycle and use that land acquisition as our match and fund up to $500,000 of projects with the infrastructure. So that grant has grown over the years. We were awarded $400,000 with Overly Warming, so now it is up to $500,000. And this is a project that really checks all the boxes of their criteria for that grant. So that grant could be utilized every 2 years and really hasten up the timeline for implementing some of these projects.
And the acquisition, that'd be more of a town board final decision, correct?
Absolutely. So
they're the fiscal agent, so they would have to approve that, but it's
We got
Parks Board, we gotta, I mean, it's us, our name would be on the bond, as I understand it.
Right.
Like, put this in perspective with Overly Warming, that's, if you include the trailhead and the rail trail adjoining Overly Warming, that's about a $5 million project. I don't know if you put Mulberry Fields in 2022 dollars. I don't know what the price was 12 years ago for Mulberry Fields for 40, that's probably 20, 30 acres. And, you know, we have a rainy day fund of $1.5 million. So yeah, we need help from the foundation, from the citizens, from a lot of angles, but it's really exciting and cool.
What we're getting in the beginning basically is Starkey Park, and then it's going to hopefully grow from there as people get out there and appreciate it and use it, and donate to, you know, the expansion of it.
So what's the timeline for thinking about the bond? Because you have to, like, there's a certain deadline to get it on the tax roll for the following year and the like. So I just did this with my project. So I'm just very curious what our plan is.
And that is to begin the conversation with you all tonight and move on to next week with town council and kind of prime them and really not waste any time in between. We want to keep this project alive and moving, and truly acquisition is the biggest hurdle in the start to really opening the floodgates for what could be. So I don't know if we're prepared to have that conversation tonight, but we certainly can.
But if we do it, say by the end of this year, then it goes on the tax roll next year, pay the following year. So it would be at least that long before we start getting an acquisition, if we're thinking of it that way.
And I need to do a little bit more research right now. We're still developing what the capacities are left in the Parks Board ability to bond. It sounds like it's somewhere around 10 million.
Yeah, that's about what it'd be.
It was my understanding with early conversations that a bond could be issued within, you know, several months, and the money could land within a 4 to 6 month period. So
And you might be able to do something like we have a leasing corporation that we use for some of our bonds, which brings up your bonding capacity, but I don't know how that works at parks. Anyway, happy to hear more about this sometime.
And that is where we start getting in the financial gurus and begin those conversations
A
further.
new CFO in the town, right?
Absolutely.
So,
And I've spent endless hours doing this, so if you ever need my help. let
All
me know.
right, I'll take you up on that.
Okay, is that it for new business? Is that it for the nature preserve? All right, as we wrap up the discussion of new business, I do want to make a quick mention that the 5-year plan is moving forward. As Amy mentioned, we have come to terms and we've signed the contract. So that's fully funded and moving forward. Again, Tim and Jill are the board representatives. We also have Jared, the mayor, the deputy mayor, a member of the Parks Foundation is on the steering committee, and we're cultivating a member of the school district to be on the steering committee as well. So we'll have 8, which we think is a good number.
And Councilman Burke.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Burke. That's right. Math was never my best thing, but that comes out to 8, which we think is a good number, right, Tricia? We think 8's perfect. So that's what we're doing on that. All right, you ready to move on to old business?
Absolutely.
Great.
Wait, we have a
Order
change
one,
order.
Change order.
No, we don't. So that didn't come to fruition. All right, moving on to the rail trail widening. I just wanted to give you all an update of kind of our timeline. So we did bid the package in April, hoping to award. Unfortunately, we did not receive any competitive bids at the time of bid opening. Just the climate right now of what construction is, there are so many projects and so much infrastructure dollars in the ether that this is, well, it would have been a highly sought after project. The need for paving contractors to identify subs and get on the schedule and coordinate that was just, it turns out was not great for our bidding process. So we have dismantled the project into 3 separate projects. So that will be the rail trail widening, which will be the northern expansion, as well as the widening of the existing 2 phases that we spoke of earlier. The second project is the trailhead, and the third project would be the dedicated pickleball courts. So kind of 3 separate ideas: paving, vertical building, and specialty courts. So now with 3 separate bid packages, we're hoping to receive those. And our new timeline is for a June 7th opening. And then we would discuss that at the June 8th park board meeting for award. That's all the update on the widening.
what would you do for Winterfest if you can't get in the pickleball court this year?
So we did have that conversation with Ice America, and we would just downgrade what we rent and utilize last year's platform with the same setup. So it would again be in the parking lot. Moving on to the Southern Rail Trail, give an update. So as I mentioned earlier, the Starkey Avenue Bridge is now in place. And once final seating is done in the morning tomorrow, we will be able to reopen Starkey Avenue to traffic at the end of day tomorrow. So we appreciate the community's patience, as that has been closed for a couple of months now. Paving has also started on the southern portion from the bridge heading down to Overly Warman. Multiple dump trucks have been on site all day, backing stone into it, and we have begun paving. So once the paver is complete with that, he will move down into Overly Warman and wrap that up for our May 20th ribbon cutting. And speaking of Overly Warman, the final touches are being put on throughout the park, including topsoil, some seating, and more amenities being placed. So the ribbon cutting for Overly Warman Park is just a little over a week away, and that will also be May 20th at 9 a.m. So we look forward to seeing the community and welcoming them into that park.
That's a Friday morning at 9 o'clock. We hope that a lot of our board members can be there for that. And did you mention the ribbon cutting for the southern portion of the rail trail June 1st?
I did not.
At
So
2:30.
we will officially have a ribbon cutting for the Southern Rail Trail on June 1st with the governor of Indiana at 2:30. as John mentioned.
And that is a weekend, right? So that's
That's a Wednesday.
a Wednesday. Well, that's a 2:30. So hopefully, we can make plans to be out there. And John Wollenberg is showing the way with our team shirts. So would like to, see us all represent the Parks Board at those 2 ribbon cuttings.
Will Overly Warm open in stages or all on May next Friday?
We will be ready. The contractor has reassured me and they have really put the pressure on their subs to get everything wrapped up in the next 7 working days.
So I'm a member of several different disc golf groups, and there's a lot of anticipation for this and wanting to know layouts. And is there something that could be, there's an app that's out there that people want to, that's how you find courses and go to. So is that something that's shareable, or is that still kind of?
We will have signage throughout and a map of the course. We'll work on those documents and getting those uploaded to that app. I've also began to become informed of that.
On UDisc, yeah. So UDisc is the use of, it's how people get to your courses, so.
Yep. And I did walk the course today. We were looking at where the baskets will be placed in the coming week. And the first 9 holes will be an enjoyable time in the woods. The last 9 holes might make you pull your hair out. So it will allow both beginners and our novice players to enjoy the course.
Just like regular golf. So.
Just like regular golf.
All right, can you teach me how to play, John?
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know which 9 I want, but.
You used to get a special Frisbee, right?
Yeah, they're a little bit different than not your typical.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, they're not just Frisbees. Yeah, they're more of a kind of a combination. If you think of a shot put disc, it's a little bit bigger and it's a harder plastic.
Is it like heavier?
Does it hurt? Does it hurt if you get hit?
What's that?
Does it hurt when if
Oh,
you?
yeah, you don't play catch with these. You don't play catch, yeah. No.
Not to make an ad for anybody, but Dick's has an assortment of these things, right?
Yeah. Well, Meyer does too. Yeah, and plenty of stuff available online as well. But
yeah, it's nice to see such anticipation for that. That's great. People are going to love it.
I mean, there's a lot of people from Indianapolis. I'm getting, getting bothered by them a little bit. They want to walk the course. They want to see it. They want to see the layout. So it's.
That's actually why we chose Friday at 9 a.m. because we didn't want to let Friday evening slip by with a Saturday ribbon cutting. So
I'm taking a day to work. I'm playing the course all day.
Right, anything else with
mountain bikers coming Friday to bed in the mountain bike trails?
Yes, so we put out a call to action for our mountain biking community to help us get the trails back in shape. They were put in last fall and just sat there.
Yeah, they're just soft. I mean, you gotta harden them up, and that just takes use.
You just got to ride them. So it's an opportunity to get a sneak peek of the course before the rest of the community gets to enjoy that.
Has the response been okay on the?
Absolutely.
On the mountain biking group?
Already over a dozen volunteers. So we're 20.
Oh, you'll
as
need
of-
them, I mean, just.
We will mobilize.
Ride your tails off.
And I also want to mention, we will have a family fun ride on May 20th. Friday evening, is it 5 or 6? Okay. Yeah, at 5 o'clock, we'll actually have a bike checkup here at Town Hall.
Right?
And then from there, we'll ride down to Overly Warm and enjoy the park together. So looking forward to seeing the community either at the ribbon cutting throughout the day or at our family fun ride.
Did you get any commitments from any committees in town to help with that fun ride?
Justin of the Pathways Committee did reach out to me today, and he sounds like he's excited to join as well. So.
All right, I represented Pathways for us at the last one, but I want to know if this one's coming up so we can start now getting people. Yeah. Okay.
All right, anything else with Overly Warm?
That is it.
All right, we have one other board-related item, and you ready for this? Okay. Jared and I had a discussion with Chief Spears about safety and security in the parks. And part of the discussion is, what about putting in cameras? What about putting in call boxes, that kind of stuff, just what can we do to make our parks safer and more secure? And he is proposing that officers who are on patrol spend part of their shift patrolling in the car, part of the shift controlling on their bike, to get more of a presence in all the parks, specifically with Overly Warm, because there are parts of Overly Warm that are a bit remote. So hopefully this summer, the police department's going to be able to step up patrol in those areas. He is going to come to our next board meeting and discuss some of those ideas and what he's planning. So we'll hear that directly from him, or at least a representative from the police. And another thing we worked on is public service announcements that included Jared and Captain Sterling from the police department to talk about, just some safety ideas if you're coming to the parks to make a more safe experience for you. And we have one of them here. This is kind of a rough cut. We're going to put these out on the town website. There are 3 of them that we produced so far, and they will be put out over a period of a couple of weeks and then shared on the police department website, also our website, and people can share them on social media as well. So this is what the first one will look like.
Worked earlier.
We're missing some audio there.
That's a new one, John. It was.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll get that audio fixed. That's about half of the audio that will be in the finished version, but those will be coming online here in probably in the next few days. We'll put the first one up and then maybe a week at a time after that. So safety in the parks is something that's top of mind from us and also from the police department. So we'll hear more about that next time. So does anybody have anything else that they would like to discuss or bring up? Any questions? All right, I want to encourage everybody to sign the paperwork before you leave tonight. Please, before you walk out of the room, do that. Reminder that we have the ribbon cutting for Overly Warman on May 20th at 9 a.m. The southern end of the rail trail ribbon cutting on June 1st at 2:30. And our next meeting will be on June 8th. So thank you all very much for coming.
Claims, approved claims.
Oh, let's approve claims. Everybody get a chance to look at the claims? Anybody have any questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve the claims?
I move we approve claims as submitted.
Second.
Tim Cassidy makes a motion that we approve the claims. John Wallenberg seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the claims are accepted. And now, I guess we're ready to adjourn unless anybody has anything else.
Make a motion to adjourn.
John Salowitz makes a motion to adjourn. Any seconds?
Second.
Jill Pack seconds. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? No. That passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We'll see you all again on June 8th. Thank you.
Is there a, Josh?